From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Electricity is progressively returning to Venezuela following the cybernetic attack on the country's power grid. Light once again illuminated the streets of the capital, Caracas, last night. Authorities have been working to fully restore power. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says Venezuela could be the first country to receive an attack of this kind, and he blames the United States.
The US government ordered this attack in the moment they saw that all its attempts to attack Venezuela had failed. They came with a criminal strategy made by criminal minds who have already been in wars such as those in Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan. Only criminal minds think about hurting people. They ordered this attack because they thought that the Venezuelan people would surrender. But on the contrary, the Venezuelan people resisted.
President Maduro went on to praise workers of the National State Power Company for their work.
We're advancing thanks to the workers and professionals at Corpo Elec. I want to offer them the recognition of the whole country for their ability, experience and professionalism. At each power station there are workers with 20, 25, even 30 years of experience. An attack with these characteristics would be very difficult for any other country to cope with. Maybe they would have had no idea what was going on. But in record time, we managed to identify that it was a cybernetic attack and liberate the brain of Corpo Elec. We were able to, step by step, neutralize the electromagnetic attacks on communication systems, and we managed to prevent physical attacks on power stations because of the armed forces.
President Maduro also said the government has provided food and basic services for citizens.
The government is attending to all the needs for food and water in the middle of this emergency and situation which we're facing. The main thing is to progressively recover the electricity system. Meanwhile, we have been providing security services to protect peace and citizens.
He also confirmed that 2 people have been caught trying to conduct further sabotage.
We captured 2 individuals who were trying to sabotage the communication system from Guyana to Guinea. They were captured in the act, and now they're in jail. They're speaking to us, and I say not just to the intellectual authors of this unexpected attack, but also to the Venezuelan justice system. Let's take down the people that arranged this attack on law, life, and peace.
Work to restore power is ongoing following the sabotage of the country's main power generator. We have more in this report.
Analyst Vladimir Adrianza says Venezuelans are resisting an international scare that seeks to break the peace and sovereignty of the country through unsettling acts like this recent attack to the national electrical system.
Evidently, it had to have done in 2 ways. The fact that Marco Rubio knew about it appears as indisputable evidence that he knew what was happening. There was external collaboration.
A cybernetic attack on the automated control of the GURI system that supplies energy to the country is an act of aggression against the people of Venezuela. For the government of Venezuela, this is yet another component of the unsettling plan to destabilize the country.
To
leave a whole country without electrical service, to leave all hospitals without power. Thank God the power plants worked. What they are saying about 79 deaths is false. While Marco Rubio was mocking the situation, we were transferring children to other hospitals.
Despite the problems caused by electrical sabotage, there is peace in Caracas. The people denounce that they are the victims of an attack from the outside.
It looks like a coup, this attack on the telecommunications. Today we have a problem and we are all affected. It won't be easy. The attacks will continue, there will be stronger attacks. We should know that if there's a war, it will be worse.
From the streets, you can see the Venezuelans are facing these challenges with civility and calm, while the national government continues to work towards the restoration of all the electricity.
In other news, Venezuelan officials have received a team from the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights. Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza held a coordination meeting which provided information on the human rights and social policies in Venezuela. The UN team will be with other Venezuelan officials in the coming days. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. is withdrawing its remaining personnel from Venezuela. Pompeo made the statement on Twitter. However, Maduro cut diplomatic ties with the U.S. on January 23rd. Maduro made the decision after the U.S. recognized opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó as interim president. Cuba has rejected U.S. claims that it has thousands of troops stationed in Venezuela. Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said Cuba abides by the principles of sovereignty and non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries. He added that the allegations are part of a scheme to discredit the legitimate government of Venezuela. The Cuban government also denounced the U.S. State Department's decision to add more Cuban entities to its list of sanctions. The government reiterated that the economic blockade on Cuba violates international law. The United Nations General Assembly has on several occasions voted overwhelmingly to end the sanctions against Cuba. The United Nations has highlighted the importance of the special jurisdiction for peace in Colombia to maintain peace and protect the victims of the country's internal conflict. The UN mission in Colombia has lamented that this special jurisdiction still doesn't have a legal regulatory framework, despite the fact that the peace agreement was signed more than 2 years ago. It also asked President Iván Duque to respect the peace agreement and the independence of the special jurisdiction for peace. On Sunday, Duque returned the peace legislation to Congress after objecting to 6 of the 159 articles in the law. We have more stories coming up. We'll be back. Welcome back. Former Panamanian President Ricardo Martinelli is now facing charges of espionage during his time in power. Martinelli will be tried for this Tuesday for allegedly spying between 2009 and 2014 on some 150 people, including journalists, trade unionists, and other opponents. The prosecution has requested a 21-year sentence. Peruvian President Martín Vizcarra has sworn in his new Prime Minister, former actor Salvador del Solar. The new ministerial cabinet has also been sworn in, with 9 changes made. This comes after the former Prime Minister César Villanueva resigned from his post on Saturday. The President of the Ecuadorian National Assembly, Elizabeth Cabezas, has been accused of blocking a corruption probe into President Lenín Moreno. Lawmaker Ronnie Aleaga denounced the Assembly head at the prosecutor's office for abuse of power. A conversation between Cabezas and the Interior Minister Mara Paula Ramo was leaked, where Cabezas spoke about a voting session to decide on the investigation. The president and his family have been allegedly linked to 2 offshore companies.
There must be an investigation to know if there was an abuse of power. I take the word of the Social Christian Party that said it will support us in our proposal of having a debate in the National Assembly about opening an investigation into the president, Lenín Moreno.
I don't hold on to my position. I think if anyone has to lose something, that is the country. If we keep paying attention to all the scandals of this country, we will not do anything else. I believe that our responsibility of the ones who are in charge of the country is to talk about topics that are framed within the Constitution.
And the International Monetary Fund has approved a $4.2 billion loan for Ecuador. The decision was announced by Ecuador's Finance Minister Richard Martinez, who also added that the IMF will make an initial disbursement of more than $600 million. In a statement, the head of the international body, Christine Lagarde, said that the government is already preparing a reform package, which is part of the agreement. Two men have beaten up a young Chilean man in what appears to be a homophobic attack on a bus in the capital, Santiago. The victim suffered a broken nose and several hematomas in the attack that was captured in a cell phone video. The footage shows that the two aggressors yelled homophobic insults at him as they hit him. The two alleged attackers are in preventive detention and charged with crimes of violent robbery and homophobic attacks.
They started to make fun of him, to harass him. They started mistreating him, and they also tried to steal his sneakers, as well as some earrings that he was wearing. When Luis resisted and changed seats inside the bus, that's when he was beaten.
At least 12 people have died and several others are missing as heavy rains and flooding hit the Brazilian city of Sao Paulo. Many roads have been blocked due to landslides, and many vehicles, including public buses, have been left submerged in the water. And more rain is in the forecast. Our correspondent Brian Meir has the latest.
Starting around 9 p.m. on the night of March 10th, Sao Paulo was pummeled by its worst rainstorm in recent history. Major highways have been flooded out and are still shut down today, like Marginal Tietê and Rodovia Anchieta. Thousands of people have been flooded out of their homes, many waiting on rooftops to be rescued by the fire department. People are traveling around on boats on some streets. Hundreds of cars were destroyed. Some buildings were destroyed. There have been landslides. It's just a sign of disrespect from the state government of Sao Paulo, which privatized 49% of the state water company in the 1990s. And since then, instead of using profits to improve infrastructure and improve flood control, they've been rerouted to the New York Stock Exchange. I myself got caught up in the tumult last night as I was leaving a baby shower with my family in São Bernardo do Campo. It took over 2 hours to get home as roads were closed, highways were shut down from the rain. And I feel lucky that we didn't get caught in a major flood like so many other residents of this city.
Brian Meir from Sao Paulo. And tens of thousands of Algerians took to the streets on Monday evening after President Abdelaziz Bouteflika announced that he won't seek a fifth term. People from all walks of life, young and old, joined the celebration. Bouteflika also confirmed that presidential elections scheduled for April will be postponed. All this comes after weeks of massive protest against his initial decision to run in the election.
It's a good thing, but only if they change the government completely. If they bring someone just like him, it's not worth it. They have to change the whole government.
Argentina's Airline Pilots Association has ordered its members not to fly in the Boeing 737 MAX airplanes after the fatal crash involving the plane model in Ethiopia, which killed all on board. The state airline, Aerolíneas Argentinas, is the only Argentine company that operates the model, with 5 of the aircrafts in service. Ethiopia, China, Indonesia, Singapore, South Korea, and Australia have all ordered their airlines to ground their jets. The decision comes after the second deadly crash involving this model in less than 5 months. Guinea-Bissau's Madam G15 party has announced that it's open to a coalition while the nation is still waiting to hear the results of the recent parliamentary elections. The party that wins on is expected to appoint the future prime minister.
When the people can give us 49 point however many, if you don't get 51%, then it can't work. A coalition is needed. but it also depends on the other political parties.
A human rights organization in Morocco has condemned the government's decision to allow Israeli athletes to compete in a judo competition last weekend. The Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization said the decision by the government was an injustice to the people of Palestine, who continue to live under difficult circumstances due to the Israeli occupation. It added that it will continue to firmly oppose any normalization of relations between Morocco and Israel. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa has vowed to protest against the increase in electricity tariffs. In a press statement, the union said the tariff increase by the state power company will be disastrous for the working class, who are already struggling to pay electricity. It added that the increase will also negatively affect the nation's industries and lead to redundancies. South Africa is counting down to its 5th general election since the dawn of democracy in 1994. Latest polls show that the ruling African National Congress will suffer some losses compared to previous years, but the party has intensified its election campaign.
South Africa's president and ruling party leader Cyril Ramaphosa has been on an intensified campaign trail ahead of the 2019 May elections. The party he is leading has resonated with a majority of South Africans since 1994, assured of landslide victory every election. If the recent polls are anything to go by, the ANC remains a favorite to win the elections, but with lower numbers. Its support base remains at grassroots level, where the people still see the party as the liberator.
We said to the people of South Africa, for one day the DA will be in government.
But in more urban areas, the battle for votes is tense. The official opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, is after votes from a disgruntled middle class. The party has been running the Western Cape province and is now gunning for the economic capital, Gauteng.
Over again what the DA can and
While the ANC is using its 25-year track record as the governing party, opposition parties are poking holes using corruption scandals that have emerged over the past 2.5 decades. President Cyril Ramaphosa, a billionaire who left politics in 1997 to amass his wealth, is now seen as the new face of ANC politics, although he's seen by some of his comrades as a sponsor of a capitalist system run mostly by white men who control the economy. Political commentary suggests that the ANC will need smaller parties to form coalitions in key provinces. Matuba Mahlachi, Telesur, Mpumalanga Province.
A Tanzanian female football juggler has become a social media star. Kadara Mjeje's keepy-uppy's skills have got over 65,000 views and many international fans. Now she wants to find some sponsors so she can continue her practice and also train other women. She fell in love with football as a child but developed a respiratory condition that kept her off the pitch.
If I manage to get sponsored, I will continue to train and improve my skills. I would also like to coach other jugglers, but there won't be many because it's about having the talent. Like for me, I can dribble with my head 5,800 times while sitting.
Our leaders, let's not only support men's soccer, support the women as well. Our government should take care of this lady. She has an amazing talent and she is flawless. She has trained hard and we see her on the TV. But for those of us women who are keeping the home, we support her.
Sudan's parliament has voted to shorten a state of emergency declared by President Omar al-Bashir last month from 1 year to 6 months. Last month, Bashir declared a nationwide state of emergency in an attempt to quell persistent protests that rocked the nation since December last year. The protests erupted after a government decision to triple the price of bread. They, however, quickly escalated into nationwide rallies calling for Bashir to step down. At least 40 people have been killed and around 150,000 displaced by floods in Mozambique. Thousands have been moved into temporary shelters and aid workers are working to prevent a pandemic of cholera and diarrhea. We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring. We believe in a new global vision, united in every broadcasting. We keep expanding our horizons and working on a closer and better communication. Now, in Grenada, Telesur, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Lawmakers in the United Kingdom will vote today on a new Brexit deal. This after the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, and Prime Minister Theresa May agreed on a new legally binding instrument that gives more guarantees to both parties on the Irish safeguard. If lawmakers vote down this deal, May has promised a vote on Wednesday on whether to leave without a deal. And if they reject that, there will be a vote on whether to ask for a Brexit delay. The UK is due to leave the EU on March 29.
Let us speak crystal clear about the choice. It is this deal or Brexit might not happen at all. Faced with this stark reality, members of the House of Commons have a deep responsibility and a fundamental choice to make.
What we have secured, as I said, is legally binding changes, which is exactly what Parliament asked us to secure. And what we have secured is very clearly that the backstop cannot be indefinite, cannot become permanent. It is only temporary, if it is the case that we were ever to get into the backstop.
Iranian human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh has been sentenced to 38 years and 148 lashes in Tehran. Sotoudeh was charged with spreading information against the state, insulting Iran's supreme leader, and spying among others, all of which she denies. Prior to her arrest, she represented women arrested for appearing in public without a headscarf, a punishable offense in the country. She is one of at least 7 human rights lawyers who have been arrested in Iran last year. The International Criminal Court says those responsible for atrocities that forced thousands of Rohingya Muslims to flee Myanmar, Rakhine's state, will be held to account. Following a visit to Bangladesh refugee camps on Monday, ICC officials said the fact that Myanmar is not a signatory to the Hague-based International Court will not in any way be a hindrance to an investigation. Around 740,000 Rohingya have fled Rakhine state since August 2017, following a brutal military crackdown.
It is all about individual responsibility. The people who were responsible, the people who gave instructions, the people who commanded, the people who did all the other things and facilitated the commission of these crimes.
The United States has bolstered its position as a world leader in arms exports. According to a new report, between 2014 and 2018, the U.S. sold 75% more weapons than the second on the list, Russia. Also, U.S. weapons sales increased 29% compared to the previous period of 5 years. More than half the sales went to countries in the Middle East. Progressive and dissident voices continue to be silenced in the U.S. Congress, especially when they question the country's foreign policy. Our correspondent Alina Duarte tells us more.
Because we're going to Washington! A woman, Muslim, black, and a Somalian civil war refugee who lived in a camp in Kenya. Today, Ilhan Omar has a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. She's also considered one of the most progressive legislators in the chamber, and her voice makes Washington nervous.
That is a ridiculous question, and
Yes or no?
No.
She's brought to light the influence that Israeli lobby AIPAC has in both public affairs and political life in the United States. Doing so has generated a campaign against her.
The anxiety here that's being raised is not about the concern for Jewish life, but is about the concern for Israel's viability as an apartheid state, continuing and entrenching its settler colonial encroachment. And the United States has been the leader of that effort.
The media campaign against the legislator treats criticism of Israeli politics as an attack on the Jewish community.
Criticizing Israel does not mean you criticize the Jewish people. We reject anti-Semitism just as we reject Islamophobia. Both are unacceptable. The criticism of Israel doesn't have to do with Semitism or anti-Semitism. This has to do with human rights and the human rights to treat both people equally.
Omar doesn't get much backing, even from her own side. Even Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has become something of a media sensation, hasn't been very clear or has kept her silence regarding Omar. Meanwhile, more veteran Democrats have tried to control the situation.
What Congresswoman Omar said, I thought was wrong and hurtful. But I also want to say that what happened linking all Muslims to the terrorist attack was wrong and hurtful, and both should be condemned.
Is laid on the table.
Even though the result of this controversy saw a declaration against all kinds of hate, which Omar signed, for the press and for Congress, an anti-Muslim poster that associated the Congresswoman with the terrorist attacks of September 11th went almost unnoticed. In the same vein, the report from the United Nations Independent Commission of Human Rights saying that there were reasonable motives to believe that Israeli security forces committed grave violations of human rights and international law was largely ignored. In 2018, the Israeli army has shot at children and journalists during the Great March of Returning Gaza, killing 189 Palestinians, 35 of them just children. The number of hate groups that exist in the United States is alarming. According to the Center of Legal Studies on Poverty in the Southeast, in the year 2018, there were 1,020 such groups, of which 100 were anti-Muslim, 148 white nationalist, 112 neo-Nazi, and 51 Ku Klux Klan cells.
Alina Duarte, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
That brings us to the end of this news brief, but as you know, this and many other stories, you can read them from our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And you can join us on social media as well. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.